When working solo, you execute your ideas. End of story. But when directing a commercial set, you're going to need to communicate all those ideas to your crew. How do you do that? Let's join Ryan Booth in a clip from his Together workshop as he shares his experiences making the move into communicating with a crew. For his full workshop, check out the link in the description.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about commercial filmmaking. So I made the movie, I kept slogging it out, trying to put some stuff together, but I more or less was existing in a I have to do everything type environment. So my crews were very small, everybody's doing more than one job, and it can be a little overwhelming when all of a sudden you get called for something that it may not be a massively big commercial, and it wasn't in my case, but it was like there was a proper crew involved, basically. And so they were like, do you have any preferences of who you use for a gaffer? And I was like, what's a gaffer? Cool. I mean, like, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but really, like, you can know the term, but like knowing how to work with a gaffer, anytime you are forced to externally communicate an idea, what you're hoping to accomplish to somebody, no matter what job that is, that's progress. Like, because ultimately, filmmaking is it is the ultimate team sport, and it only is accomplished by communicating your ideas to other people, and then everybody, that kind of bouncing around and finding its way onto the screen. So for me, my step forward in commercial work was starting to learn how to work with proper crews. And I will show you the first kind of real commercial I shot. It was for Under Armour, and it was a small production company in Dallas that mutual friends was like a personal recommendation. And basically, Under Armour was doing photography campaigns, which are actually still in like Under Armour stores now, which is crazy. But they have an internal team that was doing photography, and they would get some of their athletes to come out and like, ready, kick a soccer ball, and like they'd take photographs and they'd make key art out of those. Well, they were like, we're already setting everything up, like, why don't we shoot like a motion package as well? And this production company, to their credit, was like, well, don't shoot like motion elements, like let's make a film. Let's make like a little thing. And there's a company in Dallas, they do this thing called I Am Second, which is like this interview-based series where it's like heavy top light, interview thing. And basically, Under Armour was like, cool, we like that look, which is very much how I got hired for things at the beginning, which is personal project, just do it yourself. They're like, cool, just make that work for the brand. And so it was my first experience lighting something that I didn't choose how the interview setup was supposed to look. They just, like, I had a lighting diagram that I had to execute with the gaffer because they were doing like 8 or 10 of these, so each of them needed to feel the same, more or less. And so it was kind of my first experience going like, I'm gonna have to find ways to contribute that are not just like figuring out how to like structure the lighting or whatever. I'll play it and then we'll talk through some crew stuff.
Right from when I was a kid, hockey was it. My mom would bring home the tomatoes and the little carton that it came in, I would make hockey masks out of. And my dad, he made me backyard rinks. He started training me. That's where I found a love for the game. The big guy in Calgary when I was growing up was Jarome Iginla. He was the toast of the town, and when I got drafted by Edmonton, the first shift I lined up against Jarome Iginla, and I think that was definitely my welcome to the NHL moment. That's where I realized that I'm playing against the best players in the world, and it was time to produce. I think scoring on the road is even more fun because the building just gets so quiet. All you can hear is your teammates yelling and screaming. It's one of the best feelings in the world. I think one of the things I've learned is control the controllables, whatever you can control, and I think, that's your preparation. For me, I like to do stuff that's going to make sure that I have my speed, that's going to keep my endurance, that's going to keep my power. I'm not a finished product. I have to earn whatever I'm doing every day. There's no one to really, give you a ribbon when you walk out of the gym. That's just for you. But in the season, when you score an overtime goal in an opponent's arena and you're the only one screaming, I think that's where you earn your armor. That's when you know that everything's come together.
Cool. So we shot that in like 4 hours, 5 hours in between the photography, basically, that was happening. And that little scene where he's like on the ice rink and like walks down the little hallway or whatever, that was my contribution to the film. I was like, can we not be just like working out the whole time or sitting in the locker room? So I was like, can I have like 5 minutes with him while the photography was getting set? And me and the director ran out real quick, and like he walked out, looked at the lights, turned around and walked back. Literally like rolled, it was a long roll, one take, that's it. And it like, they cut to it like 6 times in the final film. So I think it was, I would say, a little accidental on my part in the sense that I was nervous I wouldn't be able to contribute. Like, what am I? I'm like, this is commercial. Like, they're kind of telling me what they want. And that was a good lesson for me that, like, you can always, as a DP, just say, like, here's what I think we should, like, can we grab this one thing? And that's kind of your way of contributing. That second camera angle, by the way, was a 5D, and the A camera was a red dragon. It's crazy. But it came out cool. But I will say the other takeaway from that was, because we were doing photography simultaneously, like when he was like doing that thing or whatever, they would like make him pause and like shoot, stills or whatever. And we basically had to work with the photo team. They couldn't use strobes because then we'd be having to light everything twice. And so we had to collaborate with the gaffer. They needed enough light in there that they could take the photographs, have enough light for them to pause the motion. So there's 18Ks outside the window pushing in, and there's a 4K HMI bouncing off the ceiling inside. They're like, I've never been in a brighter room, and it came out like that, so I didn't know what an 18K was, how much power it required, how far, how do you lens it, where do you put it? I'd never even seen an 18K before. I was outside taking photographs of them because I'd never even seen it before. But that was a good example of you tell the gaffer, you learn to communicate, I want it to feel dark in here, he's kind of working out after hours more or less, and they need a lot of light, what should we do, how do we do that? He's like, well, we put 18Ks outside and then we'll use a 4K inside to move around for some fill. And I was like, cool, let's do that. The other thing was there was a shot, these shots where he's kind of down the hallway or whatever, that was originally supposed to be shot where he was doing the rowing thing. And I was like, I don't know, we've only doing 3 or 4 setups in here. Why don't we just rotate and shoot long ways down this hallway? Also, the camera kind of shakes a little bit when it comes in. That would be him hitting my camera because I got too close with that weight bag. That was a near disaster, but that's for another time. Anyway, so I kind of shifted this way, and I was like, that's where I would do it. That seems like it wants to open up that way. It's more interesting. I was like, it's just a bummer that all these lights are they were all different colors and whatever. And I was like, so it'd be great to do that, but oh well, I guess we'll just shoot it this way. And before I knew it, there were 4 guys. There was 100 bulbs basically down the length of this gym. And 4 guys spent the next 4 hours changing out every single bulb in the space. And I was like, okay, I'm sorry. I had no idea. And yet, that shot's only in the film 2 or 3 times, real fast or whatever, but looks awesome. It's totally worth the effort. And that's when I started realizing, oh, got it. That's why you have a whole crew. That's why you you start adding people to the mix, and it extends your reach and your ability to accomplish these visual concepts or ideas that you may have. Now, the producer may have come back to me and said, you're nuts. Like, we're not going to spend that much. Like, that crew's got to move on to the next spot, and like, we can't do that. At which point you go, all right, is this a hill I'm going to die on? Like, am I willing to die on this? You get one of those per job of going like over my dead body, or like, this has to happen. Well, if you go to bat on this one, like, that's it. I'm not getting the guy to go down the hallway and shoot the thing because I've already asked for my special thing. So the producer has a lot of power in that sense. But I mean, that's why you have sets. That's the power of commercial filmmaking. It's the power of like crew-based filmmaking. So I don't know where you guys all are in your career, if you're like working with smaller crews or if you're starting to work on bigger crews, but like, that's the point. That's what they're there for. That's what everybody's trying to contribute. That was their contribution to this film, and I think it's totally worth it, you know? Any questions?
How technical? How was the interview shot? The one facing directly in a camera.
That was an interesting. They wanted so in the other ones they would actually build a locker room set. I did 3 of these, and they would actually build a whole locker room. They had a production design team that would build a set, and they would hang a Kino on a goalpost right over the top of the talent, and then feather the light. That one, they wanted to shoot in the actual Edmonton Oilers locker room, which has a drop ceiling that's less than 8 feet. So like, we couldn't even put a light up without it being in the shot. And so, God bless our gaffer, basically took out fluorescent tubing in a couple of the different ceiling tiles, basically popped a bunch of ceiling tiles and put Kino up inside the ceiling tiles, basically directly over him, so that we were able to kind of approximate or mimic the lighting from the other setups. So yeah, that's like a Kino bulb, literally Kino bulbs, not even the housing, just like jammed up in the ceiling with some diffusion like taped to the drop ceiling frame.
Okay, so that also looks like, well, when you have crew, right, you've got a newfound pressure.
Yeah.
People waiting for you to lead them.
There is nothing like people staring at you when somebody goes, what do you think? Like, where should we shoot this? And you go, I think we should shoot it this way.
How do you deal with that? Or how do you work around it or work through it?
I mean, basically, it goes back to the slow boil nature of our careers. I'm convinced that like having a slow burn of your career is the best possible outcome, because at some point you'll be in a position where you're like, don't know, like I feel overwhelmed. This is like outside of my like area of expertise, or I'm not aware of like the cascading results of me saying, let's shoot this way. And yet I go, I know that's going to look great. Like, it's totally worth it. Let's do it. Yep, for sure. So I think like if you can get to the point in your career where like it's not a monumental change, like I know how I'm going to shoot this when we get it going. Like, I may not know exactly all the pieces required, but like you're surrounded by people who do know how to get that done, and you can say, yeah, totally, I want to shoot this way. It's going to be great. And then you shoot it, and it's like, yeah, that was totally worth it.
Was your mind blown with knowledge just like mine was? Check the links in the description for the full workshop, and remember to subscribe to get more mind-blowing nuggets from professional filmmakers. And do share what your takeaways were in the comment section below. Go ahead, I'll wait.